Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
Welcome to the bonus show. Good to be back. Let's talk about this crazy story. I can't believe this is the first time this has happened, but a crew member of the show Cops, or as I like to call the show, Tackle the Black Guy, has been shot. Sorry, it's true. It's crazy. Has been shot and killed by police. And I guess this was an audio technician, and he was in a restaurant where something was going on. Someone came out of the restaurant, and police opened fire on this person, and this guy was caught inside and was killed. The first person in 25 years of production in this show. The cameraman was crouched inside the restaurant unharmed, and his footage is being used to try and figure out what happened. The police were responding to an armed robbery at a Wendy's. And it's unfortunate, but I've seen some crazy stuff on that show. I have to admit, when that show is on, I have a hard time turning it off.
I used to find the show really, really entertaining. But in the last 3 years, just since learning so much more about the prison industrial complex, I don't have to list the whole thing, but just in learning way more about the entire system within which these police are operating, I've gotten so disgusted by the show that now I actually have no difficulty at all turning it off.
Now, to add more ridiculousness to this story, the person who robbed the Wendy's was armed with an airsoft gun that fired pellets. And a lot of those are indistinguishable from real guns, and especially from a distance. So, unfortunately, that there are 2 deaths because of this. And no one was really in danger. But I guess, in defense of the police here, there are some pretty realistic-looking airsoft guns.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe this person would have used a real gun if they had a real gun. If they were the type of person who wanted to use a fake gun because they didn't really want to harm anyone, but they wanted to try and get some money, pretty foolish, because this type of thing happens all the time with fake guns. So got to be more careful about that. Very unfortunate. And we may never hear about this happening again with Cops. I mean, who knows how much longer it will be in production. Oh, this was also in Omaha, by the way, in case I forgot to mention that. Let's talk about this ozone-depleting compound before we go into the AOL stuff. And then after that, we'll talk about David's drug use or lack of drug use in Amsterdam. I wonder what we'll hear about that. David hasn't told me yet. I haven't asked him. This will be completely, what's the word? Well, it'll just be my actual response to David telling me he didn't do any drugs in Amsterdam. All right. NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center shows large quantities of a chemical responsible for depleting the ozone layer. Shows that this is still being emitted all over the place years after an international ban. Is this surprising? No. But what they're seeing is that about 30% of what peak emissions were for this chemical are still present. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on this? Is obviously, I would guess that you're not surprised by this either.
No, of course not. We would need to know a lot more about how the ban is policed, right? Because just banning stuff doesn't really do much unless you also have a system for enforcement, verification of what's being used, right? It's absolutely not surprising at all.
No, not surprising. This article doesn't really discuss if this stuff can linger in the upper atmosphere there, destroying the ozone layer. I'm not sure how much of it would linger or for how long or what's up with that. But this article makes it sound like this stuff doesn't, and that there are still factories spewing this stuff out. Very unfortunate, but at the same time, probably very hard to control. It's probably still happening all over the world. And who runs the world, David? The companies that are spewing this filth all over the place. Very, very disturbing. By the way, Dan sent me that story. Thank you, Dan. All right, David, I got to hear about this AOL nonsense. You went into these chat rooms that presumably you haven't set foot in for a decade or more.
Oh, I would say way longer than that even. Yeah, so we had the story about, on the bonus show, about how many million people are still using America Online. So I decided to just go check and see, are there even people in the chat rooms? And it's kind of a ghost town, because I went into the list of chat rooms. Most of the chat rooms, the overwhelming majority, have 0 people in them, right? 0 people are in the chat rooms. However, there were some chat rooms where there were people chatting. They seem to have 2 different characteristics. One trend was, it was people over 50. So for example, there was the 50+ bisexual chat, packed with people chatting. There was the 50+ Latino chat, packed with people. There was the 50+ Black people chat, packed with people. So that was one group. The 50+ chat room seemed to have a lot of people. Maybe this is because these are the same people who, when AOL came out, when they were, I don't know, 30+, 25+, they started frequenting the chat rooms, and it's still what they're comfortable with on the internet. I don't really know. The other thing was Christian chat rooms. The Christian chat rooms, the Bible discussion, the Jesus talk, those chat rooms on AOL also had a lot of people. I actually went into one and said, hey, everybody, I'm just here pleading the blood of Jesus. And the reaction was not particularly positive from people in those chat rooms, Lewis. But it was, that's what I determined. It was a ghost town, except for the 50+ chat and the Christian chat. And to be honest, the whole thing was pretty creepy to me.
Yeah, it sounds pretty creepy, especially the Christian chat room part. If there are so many chat rooms that are just completely empty, why does AOL keep them up and running? I mean, not that it really costs anything, but I don't know. How many were there? How many empty chat rooms were there? Are we talking thousands?
No, I mean, I'd say, there might be, if you look at a list of 50, there were people in probably only 2 or 3.
Okay. Well, there it is. AOL. I mean, if I had to guess what was going on in AOL chat rooms, I think I would roughly guess, at exactly what you witnessed. but yeah, AOL, something like 20 million people still using it, but that number is dropping rapidly. All right. It's the big moment. Okay. We're going to find out if, for the first time in his life, David inhaled marijuana from either a joint or a small pipe or a bong. David, did you use marijuana?
Well, here's the thing, Lewis. You're setting the story up in the wrong way for what took place. So let me...
Oh, please.
No. Let me explain. As the audience probably knows, I don't believe that smoking anything, that inhaling smoke of any kind is healthy. So even though I've talked many times about how I believe marijuana should be legalized and how I talked about the medicinal benefits, that I still think that smoking marijuana, inhaling smoke, is not good for you.
Let me interject for a minute. I guess I forgot to mention that in theory, you could have vaporized or had edibles.
Okay.
Please continue.
Thank you very much, Lewis, for that addition. So in Amsterdam, they have coffee shops and coffee houses. Coffee houses are cafes where you get the, as Larry David would say, the Kappa bullshit mocha frap things, right? And then you have coffee shops, which have cannabis and cannabis-related products, be they, as Lewis said, lattes with I guess, I don't even know what they put in the lattes, some kind of cannabis stuff cooked with it, and then you can also just buy weed to smoke. So, Lewis, I was not able on my trip. Lewis is just going to be shocked at the entire story, I can assure you. I was not able to get myself over this barrier and saying I'm going to smoke something, so I did not smoke anything while I was on the trip.
Okay, there was no smoking.
However, hold on, Lewis. I did try an edible. I actually tried a chocolate cannabis brownie muffin. I don't even know what to call it. And it did absolutely nothing. I mean, it was like having a regular chocolate muffin. There was absolutely no effect. I did start panicking when I had it. I was convinced that my left foot was getting numb. I was convinced that I was getting short of breath. That's what we call just neuroticism, okay? Because there was actually zero effect whatsoever from it. I felt nothing, and it was an incredibly uneventful thing. Honestly, I was stressed out because I was like, what might happen here? They said it was a muffin or whatever for beginners, which I definitely was, but nothing happened, and I think I'm done. I think I got it out of my system.
Here's the thing. It's not unusual for people who have not put that in their system before to not feel the effects from it the first 1, 2, maybe even 3 times they use pot. And I know that's what happened with me. The first few times I smoked, there wasn't a noticeable effect at all. And I've never bothered to look up why that is, but I've had that corroborated by many people. So I think you would need to try it again in the not too distant future, maybe, to actually see if there's an effect.
It seems highly unlikely that that's going to be happening. But anyway, people might find it funny that I certainly did start panicking. But it was not because of any kind of actual effect from the brownie or whatever you would call it. So that's it.
I have smoked weed plenty of times and panicked as a result of it. It can make you paranoid. It can make you anxious, paranoid. It can increase your heart rate because of that. For
me, it was within 10 seconds of eating it. So it was long before I would have actually felt the effects of it.
Okay, right. Agreed then. 10 seconds is a bit too short.
All right, so here's the other thing. When I was in northern Spain, in the city of Santiago, this is a place that is very important to Catholics because it's the end of a path, a pilgrimage that many people do that starts, I don't remember where, somewhere in France and comes across. So you have very devout Catholics showing up there, and also people who aren't Catholic, but they just believe that this path, this trail is the path to spiritual enlightenment or whatever. So one night at dinner, there was a woman sitting at the table adjacent to mine. She was American, and there were 3 people with her who I believe were Italian. And the woman was clearly out of her mind. She was saying things like, for example, I believe that when someone thinks something on another planet, it becomes real instantly. There's no process. It just exists instantly. That was one thing she said, for example. She was talking about enlightenment coming from plants and the earth. And she was talking about Jesus wanting people to have abundance. And she was saying something like, in my belief system, this was actually, let me back up. They were thinking about whether or not to order wine. And I think a couple of the other people at the table didn't want wine. And the woman said, no, it's okay. God wants abundance. In my culture, it's okay to waste. I'm going to order the wine and I'm going to pour it for you. And if you don't want it, you leave it because it's okay to waste because it's a sign of abundance. And Jesus wants that, right? Crazy, crazy stuff. So at
she'd get along well with Kim Jong-un then.
Yeah, she certainly would. And she would get along very well with the pastors that believe, the abundance preachers or whatever you call them. So then I took out my phone and I was able to record a little bit. This is just like one short excerpt of what the woman was saying. The audio isn't great. I did what I could. I couldn't just hold it in front of her. She would have realized I was recording her. But here's a little audio I recorded of her. Let's take a listen.
And now you have to go back this time and make good. I could just say, I forgive you. I don't want you to make good with me. I don't need your goodness. I don't need anything from you. You break the bond. Because I don't want anything from you. I don't need it.
Yeah. So that was her saying, if you couldn't hear it, I could say, I don't want to make good with you. I don't want your forgiveness. I don't need it. These were the types of rants that she was going on for 1.5 hours, Lewis. I was listening to this nonsense during my dinner. And the other amazing thing was the 3 other people sitting at the table with this woman, they were not native English speakers. So while from this woman's point of view, maybe these individuals were really interested in what she had to say, the reality is, in my opinion, they didn't understand what on earth this woman was talking about, and they were simply trying to decipher and understand what she was saying.
But if you had to guess, would you guess that they were thinking that this was really like deeply, profoundly intelligent stuff that was so amazing and thoughtful that they were having a hard time wrapping their heads around it?
I really couldn't tell. I was trying to say, do these people realize that this woman is nuts and they aren't? Or is everybody here just equally crazy and they think this woman's some kind of prophet?
Well, I hope at the very least they were enjoying their dinner.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff. Can't get away from the religious nuts no matter where you go, I guess.
No, it doesn't seem like it.
We'll have to find you a nice island with no one else on it, David.
No, I have to say though, Lewis, in Amsterdam and in Zurich, there was nothing. There were no overt religious crazies or anything like it. I had no exchanges with religion of any kind.
All right. Well, if David has any more stories that he's forgetting about, I'm sure we will hear about them within the next few bonus shows. And it's good to be back.
Thank you.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.